What's up, guys? Welcome to today's video. Hope you guys are having a great week so far. So today's video is going to be breaking down our first ever flip outside of Arizona. I filmed at this property a few times. It was a lot more than expected. Luckily, we still came out with a profit, but it was very close to taking a loss on the property. And it's an interesting one because for some of the reasons why we could have taken a loss, it's not what you would expect. Like, the market in California is not slipping like it is in Arizona, or at least wasn't last month. So it wasn't so much like a market shift, but more so the amount of money and the amount that we went over budget on this property was like astronomical. This was by far the most blown out budget, the most over budget property that we've ever had. And we're very grateful to come out on top on this one. Overall, it was a wonderful experience. We got to travel a few times out of state to go fly and check on our property. So that was a really fun experience. Going out and seeing friends when I was out in California, going out to lunches and stuff like that when we were out there was a lot of fun. So I wouldn't say that this was a complete loss. I mean, we still came with a profit, but the amount of days that we held this property and the amount of risk that we had, we would probably not do it again. So here we go. Let's break it down for you guys. This is the chart for the property up in Lake Arrowhead. It was Lake Arrowhead's like 5-minute drive from this property. It was up in the mountains. When we originally bought this property, it was a unique situation because it was actually a pretty close friend of ours. Like, we knew them in the past, so it wasn't just like a random Instagram follower or just like a wholesale deal. We kind of personally knew these people, and they were in a distressed situation. We came in, offered them a pretty good deal, I would say, to get them out of the property. We closed within 2 weeks, and obviously we closed cash as is. We didn't even go and fly out to the property, which is the first mistake that we made, especially with how many uncertainties there are with having an out-of-state property. There were so many things that like are so much different from Arizona flipping to California flipping. Like, we never had dealt with a furnace before. We had never really dealt with any of the ducting or certain codes, inspections, and a lot of stuff came up that we were not aware of, and stuff came up even on the escrow and the closing process, miscellaneous fees, tax withholding, which I want to talk about as well. So those things really ate into our profit. To get things into perspective for you guys, when we bought this property, they sent us photos that I want to say were probably 6 months to 12 months prior to what the actual condition of the property was. So that was the first red flag, is the photos that we got were not current photos. So we submitted an offer, we got it accepted, or basically they told us what they wanted for it, and we're like, listen, I think they wanted like 306 for it, and we're like, we'll give you 300 for it, based on a $40,000 renovation budget. So that's where we were right there. The ARV on the property was spot on at $450,000, which you guys are seeing right here. So this is what I like to do before I purchase a property. Obviously, the purchase date, the purchase price, total cash to close, which is the closing costs included. I like to set a renovation budget, which I changed this the moment that we actually walked the property from $40,000 to $80,000. So that was already double of our budget. And you guys will see how much we actually spent, which is significantly more than the $80,000. And then we had the ARV of $450,000. So basically, what we thought when we first were presented this property, keep in mind this was when we got offered this opportunity, it was absolute peak market, like over like 10, 15, 20, even 50, $60,000 over list price offers. So we were conservative on this ARV. We're like, we'll probably end up getting like 475 on it in our heads at the time. So we were like, okay, let's buy it for 300. Let's put 40,000 into it because that was the original renovation. And closing costs will be a little conservative with closing costs at even $30,000 closing cost. So that puts basically our break-even point on this property $370,000, which gives us an $80,000 profit margin, potential profit margin. And we're like, let's do this all day. It's out of state, so yes, it's going to be a pain in the ass, but we have the profit margin in place to where we are willing to take that risk, to where we are willing to eat up some flight expenses, to pay a little bit more in labor. We had all that in mind as well. things just didn't work out that way. So we're very grateful that we had the profit margins originally. Otherwise, we could have been really underwater on this property. So some of the biggest struggles that we had was finding labor. We knew it was going to be more difficult finding labor out of state because we had no connections whatsoever. So we were basically starting fresh, and doing that in Arizona was already difficult, but we had connections out here. Like my mentor had his crew that he sent us, a lot of his guys, but we were completely fresh in California. So we're like, okay, we'll cushion a little bit more for the labor. But we also didn't take into consideration how deep into the mountain and how far away it is from the nearest city. So we called probably 5 or 6 different contractors. We called probably 10 to 15 different subcontractors, and no one was even willing to go up to the property to even give us a quote. They were like, it's going to be $250 just for gas money for us to go up there to give you a quote, and then it's going to be an additional like $200 on top of that a day for gas whenever we are doing the project. So that was like our first thing. We're like, wow, this may be a bit of a concern. And then the other biggest concern was when we actually bought the property. That was when me and my business partner actually had flown out to go and look at the property. And the moment we walked through that property, we were like, our hearts dropped, because we realized it was no longer a $40,000 renovation. I had budgeted $80,000 what I had in mind was like, I think Arizona pricing, Arizona labor, my guys. There was a point where I was even going to fly all of my contractors from Arizona out to California and just put them up in a hotel for a week or 2 weeks, however long it took to do the project, because that's how expensive labor was in California, especially the specific property. But we didn't end up doing that. So that was our biggest concern. We then brought the budget up to $80,000, which was double, which cut our profit margins in half from $80,000 to $40,000. So the moment we walked it, we're like, okay, this is getting a little concerning. Now we're down to $40,000 potential profit, still out of state. And then we ended up just going way over budget it's a beautiful, beautiful house. The work is absolutely incredible. I think it was probably one of the best projects that we have done, quality wise, like ever out of any of our flips. The quality of the contractors and our general contractor did a very, very, very good job. He was very meticulous with some of the things that he did. He was very on top of the labor, but that came at a pretty steep price. So this is what, I'm not even going to walk through the line items here. You guys can look at what we spent money on. We pretty much fully gutted this house. I think the demo and the trash removal, because there's a ton of trash in there, like stacked up about like 6 feet and higher in the backyard of just straight trash, of literally just like old food, couches, chairs, whatever you can name, was just stacked up and piled in the back. So we spent about $6,000 to $7,000 just removing that. And then we did a full renovation, from windows to a new furnace to brand new doors. Every single door got replaced. We literally rewired the entire house. We re-drywalled the entire house. I think there's like 130 sheets of drywall. So it was a 1,300 square foot house, and every single square foot we re-drywalled it up. We had to remove some plumbing because it's an older house. So a lot of this stuff we had not experienced before. Like, the house was extremely old, where we didn't think we had to do the electrical, or we didn't look deep enough into doing the electrical, because we bought the house based on photos, which, like I said, if you're going to put up this much money and this much risk, I would always either at minimum do a video walkthrough with the owner so you can get an idea on what you're working with. Best case scenario, you either fly or drive out there to really walk through it. Because a lot of the times, I guarantee you, if we flew out there before we made an offer and we looked at the property, we could have negotiated. I guarantee you, spending $500 on a flight, we could have negotiated at least $20,000 less on the purchase price. So it always usually makes sense to go out there, and you can negotiate in person. I'm just thinking about it, there's a lot of things that we could have done, but now we know. Lesson learned. Other than that, it was a 185-day project, which also was a little bit concerning, because we usually never hold projects this long, but the first 2 months of owning it, we really didn't have anyone in there. It was like trying to figure out are we willing to spend this much money to get these people out there? And a lot of these people were like, the contractors were saying they were going to be like 6 months for the project, and we're like, that's not how it works. Like, we can't do it in Arizona. We could have done this in 30 days. So yeah, almost half a year we held the property, or we did hold the property for over half a year. Daily profit on that, actually we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now going down, so the total renovation on this property went from 40, then we estimated 80, and the real renovation was $112,421. So we essentially 3x'd our budget, which completely wiped out every single bit of profit that we had in the property. And once we got the final bill from our contractor, it was like, holy moly, like now we're starting to stress out, because we're going to list the property. What we listed the property at was pretty much break even at $450,000. So we're like, if it's anything like Arizona, we're going to get a low ball offer. Closing costs, credits, seller concessions are all going to be paid by us. So we're like, okay, we're pretty much going to take a loss on this. We're like, how bad is this going to be? Fortunately, we had really good showings. I think the quality and craftsmanship of the renovations really showed during the open houses and the showings and the offers that we got, because we actually got 2 over list price offers. Both of them were over $10,000. Both of them were $10,000 over list price. So we had one at $460 and we had one at like $462, I think. But the one at $462,000 was a cash offer, but it was contingent upon them selling their property. And we were back and forth on it. We're like, cash offer is always nice. It's always usually generally quicker. No appraisal, nothing like that. But the big holdup was it's contingent on their house selling. And in this market, we didn't want to risk putting this property and our profits and our money on the line for someone else to try to sell their house. So we're like, let's just go with the financed offer at $460,000. And luckily, a great buyer. It's a personal home for them. The appraisal checked out. It was a smooth close, no problems with that. So we're very fortunate, because if we had any hiccups with this closing process, it would have cost us money for sure. Like out here in Arizona, we're getting destroyed on these closing costs. Like these buyers are requesting, the last 2 houses we sold, there's been requests of over $10,000 in closing credits or repairs. So we were fortunate that we didn't have any of that for this house. Our holding costs were a little bit higher on this one. Like I said, we did buy it cash, so no hard money. If we had hard money on the property, guaranteed loss, because we held it for so long and our margins were so paper thin at the end of it. We would have taken a loss if we had hard money on it. The insurance on the property, $267, water, electric bill, flights was almost $1,000 in flights. The food from when we went out to eat out there, we took a couple of our friends out to eat to some nicer restaurants, and we took them out for drinks because they were driving us around all day. We didn't have to rent a car or Uber or anything, so we spent $520 on food kind of as a thank you. Gas was not car gas, it was the gas bill. Parking was for airport parking, and then we had to pay for a notary because we did it out of state, so I didn't have to fly back there. Total $2,776. So our total expenses was $456,684. Now, one thing that we did not expect, and we literally found this out the day before we were closing on this property, is California holds 3.33% for out-of-state buyers, for out-of-state owners, I would say, as tax withholding. So we were expected to make about $19,000 on this property, and then the day before close, we got this line item in the closing statement or settlement statement that was $15,000, and we were like, what the heck is this? We had never heard of this, and it doesn't happen in Arizona. We pay our own taxes, like they don't withhold taxes, and then we don't have to go after them for the withholding. So that was unique to us. Now we have to we're obviously going to pay our taxes, but this $15,000 is way over what we have to pay because that was our entire profit margin. So we have to figure that out a little bit later, and hopefully we'll get some money back from it and maybe profit around $10,000 on it. Who knows? But right now, we are at a total profit, or we did get a total profit of $4,021 for $185 for a 185-day project. Makes it a total of $22 per day. Now, if I were to look back at it, would I say, was this worth $22 a day for the amount of stress, the amount of phone calls? No. Was it a valuable lesson learned? Absolutely. Will we be more careful of out-of-state buys right now? Yes, we're not even looking to buy out of state right now until the market kind of recovers a little bit or becomes a little bit more steady. But I mean, it was fun. We still profited on it. I mean, after taxes, we're probably getting one rent payment for the month. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll hopefully put some before and after pictures of the property. Like I said, it was a beautiful renovation. Incredible property up in the forest, up in the mountains. So it's a nice little home, but unfortunately it didn't work out the best for us. But thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Drop a like, drop a comment. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on TikTok as well, and I'll see you guys in the next one.